Officially, welcome everybody. I'm moderating this. My name is Mimi Mutessa. I'm Susan Kasedde's niece, and so I'm very honored that she chose me to host this and have this conversation with everybody. Just a little self-promotion. I also have a book coming out in May. She made sure that I don't forget to do that since I've been awful at it. But it's a collection of poetry called Naked, The Honest Musings of Two Black Women. So if you want to hear more from me in the written form, that can come on May. But for now, let's celebrate Susan's book, Around the Fire. I have to say, when I first read it, I probably skimmed through it a few times now, but the first reading of it for me was like super, super quick. And I want to say that that's a testament to Auntie Susan's prowess with words and how she's just able to weave in and out of a story in a way that doesn't leave you feeling lost, but is also very immersive. And to anyone that's had the pleasure of reading it so far, I'm sure you can all agree. But to anyone for whom this book is still on their reading list, please bump it to the very top. It's a story that's very riveting, and I learned a lot about her that I didn't previously know, even though she's been my aunt my entire life. And so I think there's lots of details in here that everyone would find amazing and lots of perspectives, especially I think she and I have had a lot of conversations about telling stories about women and from the perspectives of women. And I think what this book centers on, which is a period in time as she experiences it and as her mom experiences it, but reading about it from her perspective, I think goes in tune with a lot of what she and I have been talking about women's narratives. And so I'm really excited for everyone to read it. Before we got started and so I have basically how this is going to run is I have a list of themes that I picked up through the book and some questions going off of those themes that I'll ask the various panelists and specifically Auntie Susan. But before we get into all of that, I of course wanted the author to introduce the book for herself, what it meant to her to write it, and what she hopes everyone gleans from it as we go forward.
Okay, thanks, Mimi. And again, thank you so much to everybody who's joined this conversation. It's wonderful to see friends and colleagues and loved ones from all over the world. And for me, I think it's fitting that this mix of people is online today to listen to these stories, because this is a book that really celebrates connections. It celebrates family. It celebrates sisterhood. It celebrates the kind of bonds that we enjoy through prized friendships and relationships over the course of our lives. So I started this journey of writing this book many, many years ago. And I think, like many of you who are listening, I've always felt that I had a story that was worth sharing. And I embarked on the journey of writing years ago, prompted mostly by my mum. My mum, who I believe is an incredible, incredible woman, and whose life experience has inspired me in more ways than I can count. And she sat across the table from me once, I think it was about 2015, actually a little bit before that. And she said, as women, we really have to do better at making sure that our stories are told and retold, so that the wealth, the richness of our experiences, our thought processes, the choices that we've made, the decisions behind them are better understood, so that we are better understood, and those that know us, that would like to understand us better, can do so because our own word going through what we were thinking about, how we came to the priorities that we set. And so she started me off on the journey. There were lots of stops and starts, but the book that came out a couple of weeks ago is the result of that. And it itself tells about a journey through life, a journey with family, a journey with friends, thank God, all of whom, together advised and guided and encouraged. And so really the story is a celebration about those connections, about those relationships, about the privilege of a life's journey supported by so many people, and learning from so many people. So in a nutshell, that's how I started. That's why I wrote. And that's what I hope we're going to talk about today.
Amazing. And so before I get started, I'm going to drop the Aristoc information just so that, people can have it at the beginning, and I'll drop it again at the end. But just so that nobody misses it. If you'd like to order a copy from Aristoc, they're currently ordering some, but you can give them a call at 0751. I'm going to put this in the chat too. Here we go. I think everyone should be able to see it soon.
Yeah.
But it's 0751 142455. And so if you give them a call and basically just register with them, when they finally have it in stock, they'll give you a call and you can go pick it up, as I understand it. So there we go. And I'll plug that information in again later, just in case people want more time. So here's the themes that I sort of picked up on as, could everyone just check their mute? I can't mute anyone, unfortunately. So if just anyone realizes they're not on mute, if they could put it on. Awesome. So some of the themes that I want to go through that I picked up on as I was reading this were, the first one was just basically spaces for women and women relationships where women could huddle together, and just the idea of sisterhood and what it means to be in relation with other women, for women. The second theme was the importance of family. The third theme was the importance of education. And the fourth theme was travel. And then the fifth theme was what does home mean? What is home to you? And how do we embody that both abroad and here in Uganda? So first question I have is for Auntie Susan. So one of the quotes that I remember reading in the book went as follows. Description of a secondary status to women in African society remains the greatest of ironies in my mind, given the uncontested recognition and respect among Africans for the role the African woman plays in the protection, nurturing, and preservation of family identity in society. And that whole sentence is just like a wow. Like, of course, it seems so obvious when you think about it like that. But of course, in our day-to-day lives, I think we all have the notion that women are in the African setting do come in a secondary status. So, Auntie Susan, as you were writing this, as you were thinking through these concepts, do you think, or do you hope that this secondary status, as you quoted it, would change soon? And do you think that it is changing? And should it change?
Yeah, I think that it's really unfortunate because it's true. It was true when I was born that girls and women occupied a secondary status in our society, and I've learned over the course of my life that this is still true. This is still the reality for women all over the world, really. And I think that it's something that absolutely has to change. I'll just say this: I love football, for example. I think it's a most beautiful, beautiful game that through which all the values that we cherish are demonstrated. Values of respect, teamwork, carefulness, determination to the very last minute of the game. And I think one of the most tragic moments in a football game is seeing an own goal. You know, when a team that's been working so hard suddenly accidentally or recklessly kicks the ball into their own goal. And you can almost hear and feel the entire energy among the spectators and the team just drop as all their hard works for that moment, at that moment, is lost out of that recklessness or accident. And I think that the way that women are disregarded and not accorded their full respect and regard as contributors in society is very much like that own goal. It's a complete, misuse of the energy of the resource that women represent. And I think that the way that it can change is really about mindsets. It's about choice. I think that every single one of us throughout the day, throughout our lives, has the choice to treat others the way we wish to. And so in the book, I lament a bit about the situation. I think women, in my observation, my experience, have done the smart thing. They've moved on from, hand-wringing about the situation, and they are just continuing to employ their talents. They're employing and contributing from all that they have to build family, community, and more. And I think that example is a call to the rest of community to recognize that contribution, to respect that contribution, to engage women in their contribution at their full potential. And when we do that, there's no question that as a society, we will really be benefiting from the full force, the full strength and value that we represent, that women represent, and that we have collectively as a society made of men and women. And so it must change. It can change. I believe, thanks to women who are pushing on despite the challenges, and thanks to men standing by their side, challenging and themselves changing and living by the principle of equality, I believe it will change more rapidly than it has over the past few decades. I'm an optimist, and so that's my view.
We love an optimist. Grace or Dora, did either one of you wanted to chime in on this? And Dora, I think you're muted.
I just want to say that I want to salute Susan, because I know that she's somebody who has always tried to encourage women, especially young women. And so her book really, the stories in there are just about what she does.
She works for you, and she's in.
Could everyone please check their mute once again? I think someone. Awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. So moving on, I think in chapter 9, one of the things that Susan talks about is discovering what other, far-flung parts of the world were like. Having grown up in Uganda and only known what life was like in Uganda, she then got to visit all sorts of other countries. She went to Canada. She was in the UK. And I just wanted to ask her, but also all the other panelists, like, the female friendships that you held into Susan, you talk about Pam, you talk about Sun, you talk about Dincy. How much credit do you give to those friendships for keeping you sane from, one move to the next, or as life sort of just had its way with you? It sounds like you had a lot of great female friendships that kept you grounded, and I wonder how much you attribute to your current sanity, I guess.
Wow. I can't imagine for a moment what my life would have been like without my friends, my sisters, and the women and men around me, but particularly the women. I think that, their friends being like, a bouquet of flowers that we go through the course of our lives picking one by one. And I think the sentiment there, the beauty of it is so true. They're friends that stay up with you late at night to celebrate with you, to cry with you, to stand with you through thick and thin. And those are the kinds of friends that I was thinking of as I was writing this. There's so many moments that have been shared with those friends that have been defining in many ways in terms of your principles, your values, the lessons that you carry through life that guide you. It's those friends that on either side of your path, of my path in my life, have sort of put the markers within which I found myself walking and living. And so I cannot imagine having come to where I am right now, and with the sense of confidence, the sense of clarity, the sense of peace, without these friends that I've had. And so to answer your question, Mimi, I think that these relationships are really, really life-defining relationships. There's a beautiful verse in Psalms 91, in which in the Bible, in which it says that God will command his angels to protect you wherever you go. And I really do feel that in many ways, these relationships, these friends, these sisters that I've had throughout my life have been my angels. In them, I can see the people who seemingly, for reasons I couldn't understand at the moment, were standing in place for me, believing with me and for me, and really being strong, you know, when I couldn't find the strength to go through things I was going through. They're incredible, and I really celebrate them. I celebrate that friendship and that strength that they've offered on my behalf throughout the course of my life in this book.
Nice. I also wanted to open this to Grace and Dora, because I know you all have a relationship with each other, but more individually, like, what has your relationship with that Susan been like for you, or the female relationships that have grounded you, you know, throughout your journeys? How relevant have those been to making you who you are today?
Okay. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Grace Serukenya Chimuli, and I am Susan's first cousin. So Auntie Betty Chemba is my dad's big sister. My dad's big sister. So I've known Susan since, like, for as long as I can remember. And I'm really proud of you, Susan. What you've done is amazing. And I'm really, really honored that you chose me to be on this panel. Now, a bit more about myself. So I'm married to a lovely guy called Paul, and we've got 4 children, Tendo, Sanyusivi, and Mirembe. I am a practicing clinical pharmacist, and I work in a primary care network of 11 GP practices. And yeah, that's about me. But going back to the book, Susan, thank you for giving us an opportunity to delve into your life and to bring all those lovely memories that are really connected to us in one way or another to us. But going back to the question of friendship and chapter 9, Mimi, I feel that Susan's experience meeting all the friends, you know, when you read this book, you get to see who Susan is and how she became who she is. Susan is one of those extremely diverse people. She's very open-minded. She's friends with everyone. She accepts everyone for who they are. Do you know what I mean?
But in young way is about to do one. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, you don't feel that you have to change who you were to be around Susan, which is really amazing. But I really loved the way you described your friends when you were talking about them. It just showed that you really connected with them and you built really, really strong relationships. I also loved the fact that you used to call each other halves. You know, I found that very interesting because like you really connected. You quoted the Bible, so I'm going to quote the Bible as well. There's a verse in the Bible that says there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And in that time, in the situations that you were in, your friends became your family. They became your brothers. They became your sisters. So you talked about the time where you all went. Some of your friends were from Africa. You had friends from all over the world, but the friends who were particularly from Africa didn't have any experience with computers. I had a similar experience when I went to England. We had no clue about what computers did or, you know, how they worked. So you guys teamed up and did evening classes just to get yourselves through that situation, you know, and it just, you know, I just felt like your experiences just show you the value of friends, the value of friends where family is not, they become your family. The value of friends where you just need that person to talk to be there for you, to understand you, to go through all the ups and downs with you. And you described that really well. You brought it up very well in your story, and it was very interesting to hear. So no, definitely. Yeah, friends take us through all the difficult times. So yeah. You're muted, Susan.
And I know, yes, there you go.
Can I say something? I wanted to say that I would like to say Susan's friends become your friends. She will make sure that she makes her friends your friends. And that's something that I think I've learned from Susan, because I have made some friends, very deep friends, who are actually Susan's friends. And so I can understand, I mean, I value now more friendships old and friendships new. They're beautiful. They help us go through life. And Susan's book talks a lot about friendship. I wish she could write a lot more. I think we're going to wait for another book, maybe from Susan, about that. Yeah.
We demand one. Awesome. So, Auntie Susan, I would like to talk to you about the influence of your mom. And all I could think about, sort of as we're again discussing the theme of friendship, but like especially like relationships between women, in chapter 2, where you sort of describe everything your mom did for you, especially getting you out of the country, as your whole family was going in exile, I was like, wow. I can't even imagine doing half of what she did, and having then children to take care of in the process of all of that. And so I just wanted to say, does it feel surreal, like looking back on it in retrospect? And can you just talk a little bit about what that means for you as you now see the arc of your life?
Yeah, thanks, Mimi. I think that my mum is the strongest person that I know. She refuses to give up through all things. And that's what I witnessed in her life up until this very day. And, you know, when we speak to her about her experiences, some of which I've described in the book, she often responded by quoting a proverb from Luganda, which says, "Enjovu telemererwa masanga gwayo." So what that means is an elephant will never find its tusks too heavy to carry. And that's something that it explains the way that she viewed the challenges that she went through. It explains the way that choices, she saw her role, her responsibility in relationship to her children as the tusks of her own tusks as an elephant. She had to carry them, and it was a joy and pride to carry them, and that powered her through so much. As I look at my, you know, I don't doubt whatsoever that has influenced the way that I see my own role, not just as a mother, but in community. There are responsibilities, there are roles that we carry because of the privilege of being where we are, the privilege of being where we have been born, and the privilege of having had the opportunities, whether it's an education or a training. There are roles and responsibilities that become our tusks, and we should carry those with pride. Certainly, and I'll draw again from the elephant analogy, an elephant is a herd animal. It's a very social animal. It will always walk and live in a pack. And so I think to extend the analogy, as we carry our roles, our responsibilities, those tusks, let's make sure that we constantly look around and confirm that we are accompanied by that family, those friends, that network that will carry us through as we go through our challenges. So my mum remains an incredible inspiration for me. She will always remain so, and I'm so grateful for the privilege that I've had to learn from such an inspiring, incredible woman.
I think one of the things that struck me, so I'm a green thumb. For everyone that doesn't know, I love to plant plants. That's something Auntie Susan and I have in common. And then she recently told me that her mom also has this big passion for gardening. And then I read in the book that even her great grandmother had this big passion for gardening. And I just wondered, that can't be a coincidence, can it? That those all just get kept passing down from generation to generation?
Well, I don't think it was a coincidence. I think we live as we love, and we teach as we love, and so as children and in the community, we see what people are doing, and they're often doing things because that's what they love to do. And so I love to garden. I love to see things grow. I love the way that nature gives back to us when we give it a bit of time and care. And I think that there's just something wonderful about connecting with and caring for nature. So that's something that I saw my mother doing. It's something that she saw her mother doing. Something that her mother saw her mother doing. And I think that there's no question. It's a lesson that they passed down. It's something that they taught us, and I'm sure that they hoped that we would carry on this love, this respect for nature and what it can give, and the way that we can live with it. But I'm sure that Grace and Dora can say the same. I've seen both of them be exceptional in gardening and growing and building from what nature gives us.
Cool. So on the topic of mothers and grandmothers, I just wanted to open this up to, all the panelists, Grace, Dora, Vanessa, if she can hear me. What lessons have you learned from your mothers and grandmothers, but especially on how you viewed their relationships? Reading the book, you can see that a lot of how Susan's mom and her relationship with her dad, but also in her first marriage, how I assume that those can influence the daughters that she raises, that Susan's mom raised. And so I was just wondering if everyone in the panel, just sort of through that lens wanted to talk about what lessons they learned about love and relationships, through their experiences with their mothers and their grandmothers.
Love and relationships. Okay. Susan, the way you talked about your parents, I like that you kind of split it into two. You started to mention about it, and then you delved deeper into it later on. But I think what we learned from our mothers in that generation is the resilience and determination to keep their marriages going, regardless of the challenges that they went through. And I know that we spoke about this with Susan, because when we just got married, we used to say things like, if, for example, my husband had an affair, that would be the end of it. That would be the end of it. I wouldn't have any more to do with him, anything else to do with him. But learning from our parents, and I'm just going to be open because we're all adults. So learning from our parents and the mothers, especially the things that they've been through, makes you want to think twice about the choices that you make. When we were young, when we just got married, it was like, if someone had an affair, that's it. But lately now you kind of think, what, I've built this relationship, I've got this marriage, there's so much that we've been through together, we've grown a lot. And how did our marriages, our parents, our mothers, managed to keep their families going regardless of everything else that was going, all the challenges that were going on in their lives. And that experience makes me want to be a better wife, a better mother, a better parent. Do you know what I mean? So yes, we've learned a lot, but I think mostly it's that determination, resilience. Susan in her book talks about things the mothers did, even just in times, for example, during the war times. I'm probably going to just jump a section, but during the war times, mothers made sure that for example, the young children had their parties going. If they couldn't afford wrapping paper, they would get newspapers to wrap the presents in the presents, so that everyone got a present. I mean, they had the parties that they were meant to have. The birthday parties were celebrated. This is in the middle of war. This is in the middle of challenging times, and it's that resilience, determination to make sure that they do the best that they can for their children. They use their initiative, creative ways to even make money. I think there's a lot to learn from our mothers. I can go on and go on, but it's just that being creative and determined, like Susan said, that you cannot, the tasks of the elephant's tasks cannot be too heavy. So as mothers, they took on their role as a mother, and they wouldn't be challenged. You know what I mean? As in, they would do whatever they need to do to meet the needs of their family. So yes, that's what we learn. I learned from the mothers and grandmothers. Yeah.
Amazing. And Auntie Dora, I don't know if you wanted to add on that. I asked specifically because you're raising like a beautiful family of girls, both in Uganda and the States. And I'm sure you have lots of wisdom you would want to impart in them from what you've learned from your parents.
I think she may have dropped off, Mimi.
She may have dropped off.
Is she frozen? Okay, and in the meantime, Vanessa, can you hear me?
And if you can you hear me? I am so sorry.
Yes,
I can't turn on my video because my connection is really, really bad today for some reason. So please forgive me.
We forgive you. If you want to first introduce yourself.
Yes. This is me.
Hi.
If you can see me, anyone, I don't know.
We can.
My name is Vanessa Nabeta Chibirige. I am Susan's niece. She's my sister, but really she's my sister. Because we grew up together. I have so many friends with her, and some of it gets very emotional, but it's such a privilege to be here. I said to her, like, she could choose me to be part of this. I'll start with relationships because I know that we're talking about women and how that has affected us, but I really just wanted to say that one of the things I have learned from Susan is to keep relationships and to work towards them. And we all know that that is not easy, but she'll always tell me, do this, Vanessa, go to this person, visit. And even in her book, it's very evident that relationships are very, very important. And so I've grown up thinking through and learning that and being intentional about it. Of course, together we have made a few mistakes, but I'm very thankful for that. And you know, when she talks about her grandmother and her mother and the relationships and the way that one leads to another and what that gives you is invaluable. And as I read it, I thought about my own grandmother. She was an amazing woman. My maternal grandmother. One of the things that I took from her, and people tell me that much of the time, is the fact that she loved. She loved and she opened herself up to anyone who was willing to love with her and just be loved. She opened up her home in amazing ways. And I remember there were many who ran to her home to just find security and to kind of be kept safe during that time. And it just made me realize that even as I was reading Susan's book, that these are the things that in a sense keep us going. It's kind of like, I will use the fact that a seed is sown and it kind of grows. And just like Susan and Grace, I love plants and I love growing them. I love having a beautiful garden. So it's kind of like a seed that your grandmother or your mother has sown in you. And it grows and it thrives in a different way. It probably won't be the same way like it was with her, but there is a sense in which you have that and it is passed on. And in just reading about how the relationships, kind of blossom. That's the word I wanted to use. The relationships blossom from grandma to Susan's mom and then to Susan herself. You see that seed protected and growing and being nurtured and thriving. And now it is being passed on to our children. So I think it's invaluable what many of the women that we call our heroes do for us in our lives. I really wanted to just emphasize that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's actually a beautiful transition into the next theme that I wanted to cover, which is family. So in chapter 4, Susan reflects on her family's experiences, and she says, quote, "So how did we make it through these years and this painful, conflict-filled chapter of our lives? The answer for me, family." So I just wanted to give everyone on the panel again a chance to talk about, especially I wanted to point this to Auntie Dora. I don't know if she's been able to get back on because she's raising a beautiful family both in Uganda, but also in the States, which I know can be a tricky balance. And so I just wanted to ask, what that's been like for you and what lessons you've learned in keeping a family together in the midst of a lot. Dora, can you hear me? She might be having some audio connections. So Auntie Grace or Auntie Susan, if you want to take that away while she gets this one sorted so that she can have a chance to answer this.
Yeah.
But just basically talk. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, happy to come in on this question. I think it's, and I describe in the book a period of our lives when we were going through extraordinary challenges in the community, in the country. We were living through a war, and by any measure, that experience was unbelievably difficult for parents, for children. But somehow through it all, through those years, because it wasn't a month-long experience, it wasn't 3 months, it was year after year after year. Somehow, as children living through that, what I recall are moments with cousins, are moments with friends. I remember learning to ride a bike on the street during the day, cowering at night, certainly because it was unsafe. But I remember those birthday parties. I remember just amazing experiences. I remember visiting with Grace and her family and looking forward to those moments and visiting with Vanessa and her family. And so I remember moments of lightheartedness, of love and fun, despite this incredibly difficult backdrop and all that was happening behind the scenes. And that's, thanks entirely to the determination of parents and adults in the community who insisted on making children. And so, they're the ones that came together and recalled that there was a significant moment, a moment that meant something for the child, a birthday that needed to be marked, a Christmas that needed to be marked. And so we would decorate the tree with those cotton balls and make it look, festive. We would trade, tapes and listen to music and dance during the day because that's what was safe to do. We would play outside and scream and go from house to house as families opened their doors and let us do so as children. So I really recall that sense of love and determination to make a childhood for us, despite the backdrop. And I credit family for doing that so that we can look back at our childhood and see not just, devastation and tragedy, but see memories that are warm and loving and moments that we wouldn't trade for a thing because we spent them with friends and family.
Yeah.
Nice.
I can add on to that, actually.
Please, and then Auntie Dora, I see that she's back on.
All right. I wanted to come at it from the angle of the fact that families and friends protected each other in that wartime. As you were describing in the war times, you talked about moments where you'd wake up in the morning and you have your neighbors or family or friends telling you that don't take this route because there's dead bodies on that route, take another route. And interestingly, we didn't have telephones then. So you can imagine how someone probably was running from one house to another just to be able to pass that message on. It's that love, that protection that family gave, family and friends in the community. Literally, like the saying goes that children are raised by a community. It takes a village to raise a child. That's what was happening at that time. And I know I didn't actually experience that particular phase of my life because I was in boarding school. So I didn't get to like see dead bodies while I was going to school because you guys were in day school. My husband experienced exactly what you did. And even up to now, when he talks about it, he gets tearful and stuff. Sorry, someone needs to mute.
Just a second. Could everyone please check that they're muted? Thank you. Go on.
Yeah. So yeah, he gets tearful when he talks about it. But the way you described that whole experience, Susan, made me feel even more empathy towards him and to other people who've grown up in war times. And yeah, it just brought a lot of understanding to me of that situation. I was in there, but because I was in boarding school, I was a little bit shielded. So we probably have slightly different experiences. But yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for adding that to my life. Yeah.
Yeah, and still on the topic of family, Auntie Dora, I actually wanted to pose this to you. What about the book resonated with you as you were reading through what Auntie Susan described as family holding them together through that period? I thought this was interesting for you, particularly because you're raising a family both in Uganda and in the States, and I know that can be challenging, holding it all together. So I just wanted to see what parts of the book resonated for you with that in mind.
Yes. I wanted to say that Mirembe, as you know, I was so glad that you came back. Family is important, that you came back and decided to join your husband and leave your job and come home. I know that family is extremely important as we live. It's important to stay together. And experience life together. Yes, right now I have been away, and so part of the family is here and part of the family is away. I want to say that most of what Susan has written about is so true, but I would like to say that in my particular case, I was so fearful about leaving home, and just like they had, away from home isn't a comfortable thing to it's not a comfortable way to be. But for example, Susan was very, very instrumental in helping me understand that I needed to be away for the season that I had to be away. And she helped me settle into the US with the girls and for the time that we are there. But we are very aware that it's important to be together. And I am so, the book talks about her family and the way they wanted so badly to come back home. Home is always best. And yeah, I want to say that Susan has lived a life that is very interesting, because her present life, she continues to make family the most important part of her life. And family not being just her and her husband and her 2 children, but the rest of us, the cousins, the in-laws, and she really makes family important. And that comes out a lot in the book.
I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, I think it was in chapter 3, Auntie Susan talks about the feeling of statelessness that you and your family sort of felt as when you moved to the UK, having come from like your proud heritage and culture of Uganda. now having to live as refugees and feeling stateless in the UK. Do you feel like this period shaped how you viewed yourself as a young person, or how you now view your life in retrospect? Or like, did it have a bearing on who you are today, and how did that mold you?
Goodness, I think I could talk for a very long time about this particular question, because I think it's a question fundamentally about identity, and identity that and apartheid identity that we get from our nationality, and that sense of belonging when you feel, and that sense of being free to feel proud of where you are from. And that's something that I've carried with me throughout my life, perhaps even more so because at one point we risked losing it. And we had to explain it. And it wasn't a given that we belonged, or that we had something that we could feel proud of. So I talk about that in the book, and I know that I feel very, very strongly about the importance of respect, respect, and for national identity, the importance of according every single one the dignity they deserve because of where they're from, the importance of doing so through listening, actually hearing what people are saying about who they are, because it's that hearing that allows us to feel what they wouldn't say, to hear what they wouldn't say, because they don't wish to explain or make excuses for who they are. So living in the UK as a child, we were, as Grace was saying earlier, we were shielded again by parents who didn't want us to feel that we had to define ourselves by the circumstances that we were living through. They went, through hoops to try and make sure that we had what we needed, that we were in school, that we were doing well, that we were reading, that we were learning to do, to count, learning how to just navigate through this new city, this new home. And I think that, as I look now, I think my children who, if they were given the opportunity, would say, I am extremely involved. I'm extremely insistent on protecting their rights, their opportunities to learn, and to just be in the communities that they're in. Because I think that the idea of having that taken away from you is something that I feel very strongly against. I talk again in the book about the responsibility of the state, the responsibility of a government to create the conditions to ensure that every single citizen feels that they belong and that they are safe. And I think that this is something that is absolutely non-negotiably a responsibility of a government in place. And in that moment, decades ago, when we lived as refugees, unable to come home freely and feel safe, at that moment, as I say in that book, that the government of that day had let us down. And I think that as we work together collectively as citizens, wherever we are, this is something that we really need to guard jealously, the right for safety, the right to belong, because that, we don't choose where we're born, and to have it taken away is absolutely a disregard and terrible neglect of any government. So that's my feeling at this point around that issue of statelessness and identity.
No, 100%. And I think the way you phrase that sort of flows seamlessly into the other theme I wanted to cover, which is education. There's a quote in the book where you say, it's actually in chapter 1, where you say, Uganda's educational system has not done enough to exploit and elevate our treasury of traditional Ugandan art, music, and stories. And so you've talked a little bit about this in your answer, but I also wanted to toss this to Auntie Vanessa, who has experience in this. And I just wanted to say, what's your take on how much Uganda is doing to instill, our national pride and culture and art and music in our education system, so that people growing up in Uganda as Ugandans imbue that confidence within them?
Thank you, Mimi. I I don't know that you can. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Can you hear me, or is my, okay, great. Okay, I think I had some of your question. I don't know whether it was me or, I'm not quite sure, but anyway. Our education system. Go ahead and ask it again, please.
I was just gonna say what you have to say in Uganda's educational system. The quote I read was from Auntie Susan's book is Uganda's educational system has not done enough to exploit and elevate our treasury of traditional Ugandan art, music, and stories. And so how do you feel about the job that the educational system is doing to imbue Ugandan children that will grow up to be adults with this sort of national pride we should have in our heritage and culture?
Okay, thank you very much, Mimi. I think I got the gist of the question. Like I said, I don't know whether it's my network or yours, but I will start by saying I think we have a very rich heritage in our education in many ways. I look back on the way that we were growing up and learning, and I remember a lot of the music and the culture, especially on the days that we had opportunities to exhibit what we could from different parts of Uganda. That was amazing. All of the traditional dances that we used to have. I remember in Gayaza, I think that's where I enjoyed it the most, with Miss Hobday then. And I also think so much about one of my uncles who used to play the xylophone amazingly. And all that we learned in school. So there was a beauty and a freshness to what Uganda offered us in school then that I think is slowly just kind of changing in our education now. That said, I think we have a very good school curriculum. I really think we have a very rich curriculum. I just think that the way we apply that curriculum in the classroom is what makes it difficult. And I think that's what causes us to lose out on these very beautiful things that we enjoyed in school. The reading, the diversity of our country. And I'll say that again and again, because I know that Susan also mentions that a lot in her book about our country and the beauty and the wealth of it. We experienced that in school when we were younger. And I think our children have not seen a lot of it as they ought to. I really think our government needs to work very, very hard towards opening the minds of our teachers, the way that we train our teachers. We need to open them up to a way in which we can actually deliver this very good curriculum in a way that is open-minded, that is rich, that gives our children an opportunity to see this country in a different way. And we certainly can. So there is much to do. And for me, I think that much is in especially the teacher training. So Susan is right in saying that our government hasn't offered our children that opportunity to even just say about our country that, I love this country. And it is amazingly beautiful. I don't think we have seen enough of that in our classrooms and in our schools. And I think that's what we must do. I will say again, my emphasis for me is always on the way that we train the teacher is the way that they will teach our children. So I think our government needs to work very much on improving that. And I think it will make great changes in the way that our children see our country and, eventually their world. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So at this point, I will once again reiterate where you can get this book. It's on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle, I believe. It will be in store at Aristoc very, very soon. If you would like to call them ahead of time and, book your order so that when they come in, so that when they come in, it can be delivered. You can call them. I'm going to read the number out loud now. So if you want to grab a pen and paper or jot it down somewhere, you can. But I'm also going to throw it in this big chat. So you can call Larissa at 0751 142455. Get your orders in. All right. And now I'd like to open it up to everyone in the audience. I have tons and tons of questions I could ask this panel all day, but I'm sure you do too. And so anyone with any questions that they'd like to ask Susan or any of the other panelists, what has caught your attention during this talk or as you read the book that you'd like to raise? Don't be shy.
See 2 hands up.
I see hands up too. All right, Carusa, take it away.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see me. I must begin by saying I haven't read the book, but I now know I will get the book. I cannot wait. I was going to get the book. That's not the point. Just hearing this conversation has been just absolutely incredible for me. I'm a friend of Susan's from work, and so I know Susan from that point of view. But I also know her as a sister and as a friend in other ways. There's a number of things that the book is talking about, and that is why I'm so excited myself to read it. Anybody who's talking about their mother in that way, or anybody who's talking about family in that way, this has got to be a must read. It also helps me understand why Susan is so grounded. One of the things that any one of us who work with Susan know about her is she's really one of the most solid people you'll ever meet. And I'm starting to understand where this is coming from. So it's been just incredible. You know, when she talks about when your rights are taken away, I can almost see why she's so protective of, and why she provides opportunities, and you know, where her spirit comes from. So for me, I was gonna get the book, but now it's like, okay, now this I'm moving now quickly. I just wanted to say one last thing, perhaps, is the issue of friends. I'm coming at this as a friend. Is I read somewhere that friends are family you make for yourself. You've got the family that you were born with, where you were born into, and then you've got the family that you can make. So to me, I consider Susan part of my family that I make, and it's such a privilege, and I'm just so excited by this book. Thank you so much, Susan, and congratulations all of you for supporting this incredible woman. Thank you so much.
I agree wholeheartedly. Barbara, I saw you had your hand raised. We can come back to Barbara. I see my mom is on the line. Hello, Olive. What would you like to say?
Hi, I hope I can be heard. Thank you very much, Susan. Congratulations once again. I wanted to say something to those that haven't read the book. So there's an amazing collection of pictures in there that they can't communicate just talking about them, but they span like 5 generations. And we take pictures for granted now because we can take pictures just about any time with our phones. But back when these pictures were taken, I mean, it wasn't a common thing. And so you see pictures that people posed for, you see pictures in different settings, you see people from such a long time ago, different styles, different fashions. But then you see the thread that goes, you know, from that generation to the next generation to Genze and Bunyaga today. And so it's another aspect that I really loved in the book. And I think that it was Susan used pictures very well to bring the story alive. So once again, congratulations.
I agree wholeheartedly. The pictures were amazing context. Would anyone else like to ask a question?
Oh, shit. Hello?
Hello.
Well, my name is Starrett Green. I'm tuning in from South Carolina. And
Welcome.
Dr. Susan Kasedde, I met her in Belize when she served there as head of the team that did such great work in Belize on behalf of UNICEF. And I'm sure she will recall that I had informed her that I was doing a book on short stories. And then Susan said, wow, there's a work that I had started. And that conversation became instrumental in her returning to the work she had started, because she had become so engaged in the work in Belize that she had put aside some important personal matters. And I'm glad that we had that conversation, because it was the spark that allowed her to return to what she started. And so today, I want to congratulate her on what she has done, producing a great book, one that speaks to customs and traditions and values of her experiences. And I haven't read it yet, but I will certainly do so. But my intervention was mainly to say thanks to Suzanne for moving ahead and producing what must be an important book for all Ugandans and people all over the world to read. All the best to you, Susan. Take good care of yourself, and God bless you and your family. Thank you, Mimi.
Thank you so much. Zadinga, I think you had a question.
Yes, thank you very much, Mimi. My name is Zadinga, but I go by Dinga, and I am Susan's friend from college. We met in Philadelphia, and you know, I have been reading her book, and I am so amazed. I agree with everyone here who says the book is giving us amazing insights into Susan, because I really feel now that I understand so much about how she's so grounded, but also how much pride she has in being Ugandan. You know, I felt frankly like an honorary Ugandan. I'm from Zambia, but I felt like an honorary Ugandan when we were living in Philadelphia, because I could cook the food. I knew so many things. You know, I even came for her wedding. I came to Uganda for her wedding, and I even have a kwanjula. I have a musuti, and I attended her kwanjula. It was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. But what I really wanted to say is I've been reading this book and I haven't finished it. I haven't yet gotten to the college years. So I hope that you have been kind to me, Susan, but I'm sure you have. But the thing which I find so fascinating, and I have been telling so many of my colleagues about this, is just how much you think you know someone. We spent so many hours talking with Susan about everything. And yet I am finding so many interesting things out about her. One of the things which I find so interesting is the way that she is able to reflect on, a child's mind, what it is. I'm thinking very specifically about the times when she and Henry were in London and were home after school and getting up to all kinds of mischief. And just, I feel as though myself, I'm sure I did many of those same types of things, but I think I've forgotten it, or I've blocked it, or as a parent, I want to pretend like I never had those experiences, but I think it's really wonderful that, Susan, you're able to really reach back and bring all of that out, and really, really just explain how a child reasons, how a child thinks, and how innocent and how harmless it is, and really, how universal it is. So I really, really appreciate that about this book. So thank you so much, Susan. And I am so proud of you. I cannot tell you how proud I am of you.
Thank you so much for that, Dinga. I think I saw Barbara raise a hand or wave. There's two Barbaras. There's Barbara Mugoya too.
Oh, okay.
Whoever.
I'm Barbara Hitt, and I'm a friend of your brother Henry's, Susan, and he invited me to attend this launch, and I'm very excited to be here from Alabama. Actually, I did not have my hand raised. It was the other Susan. When I saw there was another Susan, I sent her a direct chat and said, "Hey, Susan, I'm Barbara from Alabama." But I'm very excited to read the book. I'm very good friends with Heather and your wonderful niece and nephew, Torrin and Sophia. So very happy to be here with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much for joining. Barbara Mugoya, did I see that right? Did you have a question as well or a comment? Anybody else have a question or comment?
I just want to add on to what Dinga said, or that scenario about when Susan and Henry were young and they were in the stateless, state, a mixture of because I think that title of that topic was stateless. And I remember the time when they mixed with the wrong people and ended up having to steal from a shop, from the corner shop. And Susan's mum got them and told them to take the things that they had taken. They had borrowed. That was the word you used, I think, Susan. They had borrowed and take them back to the shop, that they had borrowed the things from. So going back to mothers and how they instill values in us, and how you're in that kind of stateless environment, and you're trying to keep all the values that you have, and you're trying to maintain the values that you've raised your children in. I think I just wanted to commend Auntie Betty for what she did, and how she made sure that you guys remained grounded with all the mischievous activities that you were up to at that age, and like any child would be. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that out, that Auntie Betty did great. Yeah.
That was a fun story. I can imagine the mortification of having to go back to the store and return the borrowed items. Anybody else? The rest of the floor is yours, people. After this, we will wrap up. I know it's been a little over an hour.
I would also like to point out that I also, again, the story of how your mom got you and Henry out of Uganda is just amazing. I think, again, as a parent, as a mother myself, now I imagine what it would be like to walk with my 5- and 6-year-old to get them out of such a dangerous situation. And I think, it is what we women have been through is amazing. And really the strength that women have is amazing. And it makes me want to go and ask my mother more and more questions. I have spoken with her, but this really makes me want to know more, about all of the things that she's been through, because I think in many instances it is what we do and we don't think of it as particularly heroic, but really it is.
I really want to add my voice to Zadinga's. Really want to add, because I was going to say two things. One was Auntie Betty's story of the miraculous escape, as I called it in my mind. It was just, I don't even have words to say. A miraculous escape, like the courage, thing that it of her to be able to do that for her children, and to see that she unites them with their father and her, her husband, is just causes me to value women even more, and to just applaud every woman, because like Ika has said, you don't think about what you're doing, you just do it. But she's a hero, an amazing woman. But the other thing that I also wanted to point out that I loved about this book was the way that Susan depicted our country. I tell many people that we have an absolutely beautiful country, and I have not traveled every part of our country. It's a dream I've had for a very long time. There are parts I haven't gone to, but her book really tells a beautiful story about our country. It doesn't sugarcoat it in any way. We've been through some very, very difficult times, but it's those times, I think, that have shaped even the lives of the women that she speaks about in the book. It's those difficult times that we've gone through that have shaped their hearts, their love for children, their willingness to fight the good fight of faith, so to speak. And so I just want to really thank you, Susan, for giving us a real picture of who we are as Ugandans. This country is, I like to use this word, so I will use it. This country is absolutely, all of its potholes. And it reminds me of that story of the boat. I laughed when I read that. When you and Uncle Henry, you just come back from the UK, and in between the conversation were the potholes. So potholes, no, this country is absolutely magnificent, and I just want to thank you for depicting that in your book, amongst the many things that
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. I just wanted to sorry, go ahead, Grace, please.
Are you sure? Okay. So I just wanted to sort of add on to what Vanessa was saying, and just appreciate the way you define and describe scenarios, situations, and events. There's one particular one that I loved, two actually that I'll mention. You talked about the experience of driving by Owen Falls Dam, and how the cars would slow down a little bit just so we can experience the falls. And as you were describing, it's just the way Susan describes things in her writing is not the normal way. I mean, I was even thinking about anyway, just going back to that situation, the way you described that whole scenario just put a smile on my face and just made me feel, it just took me back right there, and I just felt like I was literally driving over Owen Falls Downs, experiencing the falls and that whole experience, all because of the way you described it. Then the other experience that I really particularly enjoyed was when you were defining when you're describing the situation where the event where you had the debates, and Senga, who's the paternal grandmother, came to visit. Now, the way Susan described this particular scenario, I mean, if I was writing the story, I'd probably say something like, we had a debate and then our aunt came and she was listening in sometimes. But Susan would not just describe, she would describe that event of the debate and then talk about this particular Senga. She talked about the way the Senga sat down. She talked about the way the Senga was weaving a mat, and how she, what kind of materials she was using. It's just the detail, every detail you went in was taking me deeper and deeper into that situation. You just feel like you're being sucked into a nice environment, and then you just find yourself sitting in that environment and thoroughly enjoying it. So I really loved the way you described that. But reflecting back on that Senga, the aunt, the paternal aunt, and their role that they played in your life, made me reflect on my life as an aunt. And in this day and age as aunties, are we doing what our aunties did for us? I mean, your mom was my aunt. She taught me how to pray. She spent time telling us all the stories in our language. But are we taking time to do the same for our nieces and nephews? So I felt challenged by that, and thank you for that. I'm definitely going to revise the way I spend time with my nieces, nephews, godchildren, and just make it more intentional, because these people went that extra mile for us, and somehow we've lost it along the way in the busy lives that we have. And yeah, I really like that. Yeah.
I agree with what Auntie Grace just said about how Susan was able to suck you into the book with her great descriptions. And so when I say that it's a super easy read and you won't put it down once you start it, I do sincerely mean that. All right, Auntie Susan, I know you wanted to say something.
Yes, I just wanted to add to the excellent comments from everybody. Dinga mentioned the part I talk about children and the things that we did as children and what we were thinking at the time. We thought what we were doing were really good ideas, but obviously that didn't always turn out to be the case. But I also talked about our parents' reactions to what we were doing. And I think that one of the things that I talk about quite a lot in the book is this parent-child relationship. And I think for me, one of the things I reflected on a lot as I was writing was the importance of time, the importance of patience with that relationship, because it's only over the course of time that in fact we can fully understand or accept what was going through the minds of a child or a parent. And that certainly was the case in my relationship, particularly with my dad, as I describe in the book, a relationship I cherish and wouldn't exchange for the world as I stand right now. As a teenager, I had a different idea completely about how I felt about that. But time really clarifies, and it allows us to see just how precious what we have has always been. And I also wanted to comment on what Vanessa was talking about in terms of the country, the roads, the analogy of the roads and the state of the roads being a reflection of the state of disrepair that we were facing in the country, the kind of devastation that we were looking at. But I think that what we've been handed, every one of us, and I think that this goes beyond Uganda, wherever we are, we're not handed perfection. We're not handed a perfect set of circumstances. We're handed an opportunity to nurture, to improve, to cultivate, and to put our own stamp on the platform that we've been handed. And so I think that if during those years of statelessness, our parents talked about our country as if it was the very best thing, the very best place, and the very best state, they were really talking about the country that they saw in their mind, the country that they wished for, the country that they loved, the country that they knew it could be. And I think that that's an invitation to all of us to look beyond the disrepair, look beyond the imperfection, and see what we have for what it could be, and hand that on, hand that love, that optimism, that hope on, but certainly also the discipline, the commitment to put our shoulders to the wheel to work to make it better through what we do in our families, in our communities, through our friendships and our respective careers and other contributions professionally. let's continue to build, but I think let's never lose sight of what it could be. Let's never lose faith in what it could be. And let's commit to being part of the reason that it actually moves closer and closer to realizing that.
Awesome. I think Olive Kasedde had a question next. All very good points, by the way, Auntie Susan. And then after her, I'd like to get a couple more in. We have been going for about an hour and a half. So after Auntie Olive, if there's a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap. Take it away.
Thank you, Mimi, and thank you, Susan, once again. Sorry to come back in a second time, but there's something about Susan's book and the writing that I really love. And we all know that when we talk about culture, language is a really big component of that. And I was fascinated to see how Susan managed to talk about to tell the stories that she did and talk about the importance of passing on lessons, stories across the generations. And then she used sayings in Luganda. Susan, I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you found this collection of sayings that were always just perfect to the point. Because we know that a lot of times African languages are not given prominence, and in world literature, we tend to use other people's language. Africans use a lot of other people's languages when they write. And so I loved the way you were able to bring in Luganda sayings that were just always perfect for the moment. And that then, kind of formed the glue between what you said about the importance of culture and what, people's beliefs and the values that they hold, and then that you are able to do that and yet tell the story in English. So I applaud you on that. Thank you very much.
Auntie Susan, anything you want to say about that in particular? I know it must have been something very important to you to include inside. Just anything you want to say about it?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I think when all of you asked the question, how you don't know how I came across the sayings, and I just want to acknowledge the people who have made sure that those sayings don't disappear, that those sayings find their way into our common, our common discourse, the way we speak, the way we teach, and in the short description of the book, I talk about my attempt to share age-old wisdom. And part of that was a reference to these sayings, because I feel that the more that we progress as a society, the more that we develop this sense of evolution, real and imagined. But I think the more time passes, the more we see we see that, in fact, some of the lessons that we're learning have always been right there in front of us in some way, shape, or form. And these sayings are a reminder to me that, in fact, there were lives lived, experiences had that led people to come to these sayings, these proverbs, to teach, so that those that they loved and cared for wouldn't have to live through those painful experiences to come to the same wisdom. And so I really do want to I want to salute those people who passed these stories, these sayings down and kept them alive for us to turn to and refer to. And I hope that as people read this book, they're able to just get a glimpse of some of the incredible wealth, again, that we have, the incredible treasury of wisdom that we have in our cultures in Uganda. And I hope also that we can address the gap that you've talked about, Olive, in terms of our writing and our giving prominence to our language, our art, our culture. I hope that we can turn that around by having so many more people write in Uganda, across the country, but also in Africa. I'm so encouraged that there are more Africans right now, and our story so that others can hear that firsthand and learn from it, because we have so much, as I said, to bring to this global marketplace.
Amazing. We have been going for an hour and a half. So does anyone have any other questions that they'd like to squeeze in while we have the Honorable Susan in our presence? Going once. Going twice. Well, you guys have all been an amazing audience. Auntie Susan, this wouldn't be possible without you and without your amazing work. Everyone, I will not stop saying this. So if you have a pen and paper near you in Uganda and would like to order it, the phone number to call is 0751 142455. I'm putting it in the chat again. We will text you, we will call you to see if you ordered your book. I'm just kidding. But this has been amazing. And to Susan, if you'd like to have the last word.
Wow, my last word would really just be one of thank you. Thanks to everybody who made the time to join today. We could have a conversation over this book and the themes in it for hours and hours, and I don't think I'd ever get tired of doing that. So I hope that we will all have the opportunity to meet and continue these conversations in your groups and amongst your friends. These stories are not unique to me. I know that these stories are stories that everyone, that someone can identify with and could share. So I just wanted to thank you for that. I also want to extend apologies from my own dad, from Honorable Henry Chamber, who had really wanted to be here with us to share his own reflections on the book, but he's not too well and wasn't able to connect finally. But he's like me, is so excited to see another generation of young writers active and sharing from what we're learning. So again, thank you, and thank you to Mirembe, thank you to Grace, Vanessa, Dora, the incredible panelists, for patiently reading and reviewing that book and sharing your thoughts. But especially again, thank you to everyone here, because in so many ways, the reason I was able to put this book together is because of the kinds of relationships and connections and experiences I had with many of you and many people connected to you. So I do want to thank you for making it possible for me to do this. Thank you. Mirembe, back to you.
All right. Well, everyone, stay safe, keep sanitized, hug your loved ones if you can, and have a blessed rest of your day. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.